I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.
That's our intro right there.
Okay. Is that camera better?
Yeah. All right. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Mad Mamluks. My name is Sim. Along with me is my co-host, Murtada.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome everyone to the show. Before we get started, please help us out by clicking on the old like button. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And throw a comment in the comment section below with your thoughts related to this show. We come on once, sometimes twice a week. If that is of benefit to you, please help us out on patreon.com/the Mad Mamluks. Alternatively, you can help us out through PayPal by sending your payment to the madmamluks@gmail.com. Every one of your donations goes directly to the show. All your contributions are directly funding, bringing on guests and equipment and things like that. We do not make any money off the show. This channel is demonetized and is entirely relying on your support. Brothers and sisters, we have some big news. We have heard about the Syrian crisis that has happened through the mid-2015s and 16s. And for a long time, the rebels have kind of been cornered towards Turkey, and significant developments have occurred in the past 24 hours where the rebels have taken over Aleppo. And we have here live from Syria none other than Bilal Abdul Kareem from On the Ground News. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you and all your guests.
Good having you on again. We're deeply honored and delighted. Previous guest of our show. So what were your thoughts? Did you know about anything? What was going on related to the whole new offensive that was taken recently?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. What's circulating in the news today is that this was a surprise attack and a lightning offensive. You will find on a lot of different talk shows that these different pundits will get on and they will say that the rebels caught the government of Bashar al-Assad completely by surprise, and therefore they were able to successfully take over territory. Listen to me. I'm going to give it to you straight. No sugar, no spice. That's all complete and total garbage. Everybody knew the offensive was coming, including Bashar al-Assad, because he sent tanks back in the middle of October to the north because everybody knew that rebel forces were planning an attack. So this thing of they didn't know, that's kind of like when we were back in school and you got beat up.
Yeah.
And then somebody says, "Oh, yo, what happened to your mouth?" And somebody says, he sucker punched me. He didn't sucker punch you. He punched you in the face. He was standing right in front of it and he told you he was going to do it. That's exactly what happened in this case. Don't listen to anybody who will say it was a surprise attack and nobody knew. They don't know. Now, the scale of the success of the attack, that might be something that nobody anticipated. But to say that nobody knew the attack was coming, nah, brother, it ain't like that.
Yeah, so let's get into that. For the large part, there's the Kurdish rebels who've kind of created their own area with the assistance of the United States. They call themselves the Syrian Defense Forces, if I understand that correctly. And they're largely kind of backed by the United States. And HTS, Hayat Tahrir Sham, they were formerly a group affiliated with Al-Qaeda. They've publicly declared disavowal from Al-Qaeda. And so they're kind of supported by Turkey or slash America. What's different about this offensive is that it seems like all the rebels did this in coordination. Is that correct? That's what we're hearing from the reports that we're receiving.
All right. I want to, if I can, before I answer your question, just kind of give a little bit of background and some of the elements that you mentioned in your question. The first thing is that the Kurds are not really rebels because they do work alongside the government of Bashar al-Assad. The 2016 siege of Aleppo wasn't possible without Kurdish militia forces doing their part in maintaining around 30% of the siege from their own territory. So no one considers them to be rebels. They have a level of autonomy in the areas in which they control, but they're not rebels. Okay. They're not, by any stretch of the imagination. Actually, when the Turkish forces want to attack the Kurds frequently will take down the Kurdish flag from some of their headquarters and put up the Syrian flag so that Turkey wouldn't attack it, because that would be like attacking Bashar al-Assad, and the two don't attack each other. So I just want to kind of make that nuance there. Second thing, Hayat Tahrir Sham being Al-Qaeda. I'm just going to tell it to you, and maybe everybody may want to accept or not accept what I'm getting ready to say. I don't like Abu Muhammad Jolani, and I never really have. I don't think that he himself, as a leader, is sincere to the Islamic project. I don't, and most Syrians don't think so either. After having said that, Abu Muhammad Jolani was never really Al-Qaeda. He declared his allegiance to Al-Qaeda because he had a beef with ISIS at the time, and he needed Islamic legitimacy. That's why he declared himself to be, wait a minute, no, I'm Al-Qaeda. But in reality, Al-Qaeda never had control of him, and he was never really Al-Qaeda. And I challenge anybody who could bring something different than that, who actually knows the situation. Okay, now that we got past that.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty big statement, though, that you, in terms of that, you don't see Jolani as someone who is interested in or is aligned with Islam 100%. Is that something that what you're hinting at, that he's not in it entirely for Islam? There's some personal ambitions involved.
Well, I'm not hinting at it. I'm saying up front and close. For example, Hayat Tahrir Sham, in the territory in which they govern, torture is rampant. Indefinite detention is there as well. They crack down hard on dissension, and they create monopolies on essential products. Now, all of these are all impermissible in Islam. Now, when they were in a competition with ISIS, they were very quick to say, let's go to an Islamic court to settle our differences. Let's go to an Islamic court to settle our differences. Once they seized power, all of that talk and rhetoric totally stopped. Now, after having said that part, I want to make sure that your listeners and watchers understand something. Hayat Tahrir Sham is only a part of this offensive in which you're seeing. There are thousands of troops that are not a part of Hayat Tahrir Sham. It's billed up in the media as a Hayat Tahrir Sham operation because it makes it easier for people to simply denounce it as a bunch of terrorists who are at it again. But that's not the case. That's not remotely the case. There are many different groups, and they're all working together, which is something that we never really see. And that's definitely a step in the right direction. So no, Hayat Tahrir Sham is not a popular group here in Syria, but they did initiate this attack, although they are not in full control of the attack, nor are they the ones who are totally orchestrating this attack. It's in a ghurfa mushtarika. The different groups are together, and their leadership is there, and they are working towards, making this territory a more governable territory and getting rid of the regime of Assad.
So, Akhi Bilal, just a couple things here. If Jolani is not loyal to the Islamic cause, right? Would it be safe to say is it more nationalism for him? Is it more just power hungriness? And that would be my first question. Number two, also, so since you also mentioned as a follow-up to that, if there are other groups working, how are we able to differentiate between the two? Because there's numerous videos coming out on Twitter. I try to keep up with, whatever's coming out. And there's a video that recently came out about in Suleymaniya where there's Christians who live there, and they're saying that we've been treated well, and they've been giving us food and making provisions for us for our holidays. And so I'm trying to and for myself and for the listeners to see, how do we know, who these groups are and where they're operating?
Okay, I want to make sure that this is clear. What city are you guys?
Chicago.
Chicago. Okay. Chicago knows a lot about mafia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm from New York.
Okay.
Going back some years ago, there was a notorious mobster. His name was John Gotti. He was involved in racketeering, murder, everything that you could possibly think of. But he donated money to a hospital. Okay. That's a good thing, and nobody's going to take that away from him. But he got some other stuff that he needed to deal with. Do you understand? You asked the question, what is Jolani in it for? Nationalism? No. Power? Yes. The issue is that what was narrated to me many years ago was that, Bilal, you don't know Jolani. Jolani is the type of person that if he can rule with the Sharia of Islam, he would be happy. If he doesn't rule with the Sharia of Islam, he will be happy. The important thing for him is that he's in charge and he's ruling. And I have found that to be the absolute truth and the reality of Abu Muhammad Jolani. Now, once again, I don't want to get too sidetracked and make this whole thing about him, because it's not. This rebel push is about much more than Jolani and Hayat Tahrir Shem. They're only a part of it. But I do think that what you've got to do is, somebody said something that was important one time, that if you want to understand a people, just see how they treat the weakest people in their society, i.e. their prisoners. If you find a people treat their prisoners with justice, then you got yourself some just people. If you've got some people who don't treat their prisoners with justice, they have no means to free themselves, they're under torture, some of them die under torture, and then you go out on Eid Day and pass out sweets because it shows that he has a good heart. No, that ain't the criterion that we use.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that you're saying that. I'm just saying is that,
Yeah, sure.
I'm just putting it in these terms so that it's clear.
No, understood. And so I guess that goes back to my second follow-up question. How do we, for example, we're seeing videos of minority villages, and there's and again, I try not to be, we're taught to have husn al-dhan, but then you have to be skeptical because there's a lot of powers at play here, right? But there's videos of elderly Christian women saying that we've been treated well, they're opening the food market for us. And so how do I know whether that's HTS or if it's some other group, or how do we differentiate between these factions?
But you see, but here's the thing. Do I believe that Abu Muhammad Jolani wants those Christian minorities to be treated well? Yes. Why not? They're not a threat to his rule, and they're not trying to tell him who to torture and who not to torture. So he has no beef with them. So of course, with the eyes of the world watching, it's going to be such that treat them well, especially Christians. Hello, are you guys watching this?
Yeah.
Okay. But then when it comes to the Muslims who are languishing in their prisons, brother, it ain't the same thing. and is well documented.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about a couple of people here know this. Everybody here knows it. It's not a secret. It's not even a guarded secret or a kept secret. It's not a secret at all. So, maybe a lot of people, maybe outside of the country, they don't know him. He's got a beard. He looks Islamic. The brothers are saying Allahu Akbar. Now, a lot of those brothers that are with him are well-intending brothers. They are. And some of them are in it for Islamic reasons. But that doesn't mean that he is.
Yeah. No, I think that makes perfect sense. And I think part of, since the beginning of it, I think a lot of Muslims have woken up to the reality that because people chant slogans and look a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are practicing.
One of the
Muslims.
things, Mort, is that people in the beginning of the war had their hearts attached to many of these groups. People like me, who saw some people in this conflict as heroes, and they turned out not to be heroes. And so we don't want to be burned like that again. True. And that's why we have Brother Bilal here, so that he can kind of sift through and show us, like, hey, to show us like where we may go wrong.
Yes. So speaking on that, Akhi Bilal, so as I'm happy for the genuine people of Halab to get their properties back, their safety back, I'm happy for that. But I can't help but wonder the timing of all of this, right? Like when Iran and Israel are gearing up for war, Hezbollah is fighting Israel, and this is no praise of Hezbollah, but I'm just saying that, to me, I can't help but wonder, did the Western powers allow the flow of arms to rebels? Did they turn up that knob and say, well, we're going to put a stranglehold on, make Russia have to now fight on different fronts and make Iran decide between Hezbollah and Syria and funding Palestine, right? Like, I can't help but wonder, and is there some truth to that? Is there, maybe am I just, being too skeptical?
There would be two scenarios, and your viewers would have to choose the one that they think is the most accurate, because I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist, but I will tell you. On the one hand, you'll have people who are saying, America gave the green light to Jolani to launch this offensive because they want to continue to pressure the Russians and Iran and remove their influence from the region. And therefore, Jolani is taking orders from Washington. That's one side. The other side will say that rebel forces seized an opportunity that was already there and did not need anybody from Washington or from Downing Street to tell them that the Russians are knee-deep in a fight in Ukraine. They don't have the resources to be able to send swarms of planes like they did back in 2016 when they kicked our butts in Aleppo. They don't need anybody from outside of the country to tell them that the Iranians are locked in, I guess you would want to call it maybe mortal combat with the Israelis. Well, they get smacked around more than they smack the Israelis. Nobody has to tell them outside of the country that Hezbollah is in their weakest state than they've been for many, many years. And even here in Syria, they're seen as a bit of a liability because the Israelis attack their positions. So the other side of the divide would say, anybody with eyes would see that this is great timing. Why would you attribute it to them taking orders from an outside power? And your viewers are going to have to choose the response that they like best.
Well, one of the pretexts for our listeners to understand is that during the Obama administration, the Americans were trying to find a partner to deal with the Syrian rebels. Like, hey, do we have someone who can become our little lackey? And they couldn't find that. They didn't have someone that they could really seriously work with to be someone even if there was someone, they weren't strong enough. And so what they did was they kind of did a managed conflict where they would give enough weapons to the rebels to control certain parts of Syria. But they never gave them enough so that they can take over, because they knew that Bashar served a purpose, that he could possibly be better than the alternative, right? So in order to kind of avoid that, they've been managing this weapon flow. When it comes to warfare, as you understand very well, Bilal, that even if you take Aleppo, you still have to hold it down, right? There's only so much you can get from the black market. You need Turkey and the United States in coordination with each other, because they're both NATO allies. Whether it's coming from Turkey or the United States will green light it to Turkey to fund these rebels, right? They will have to receive some kind of green light to because nobody wants to be left alone making a decision by themselves without supply lines and weapons coming in, and all the effort that takes to create an offensive and hold your positions as well. That's why, in my mind, I was thinking they had to have received a green light, at least from Turkey. And Turkey would say, okay, we will make sure that you're well funded and supplied by us so that you can maintain these territories. What are your thoughts on that?
Going back to the Obama administration, the U.S. did train and fund certain groups, but that was 8 years ago. That was a long time ago, maybe a little bit more than that. When Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State and they had the Friends of Syria. That didn't work out. It didn't. And to my knowledge, the U.S. has not been funding the groups here since that time. Now, it's true, America and Turkey are both NATO allies, but America and Turkey's interests do not always, sometimes you could say don't usually intersect and go alongside one another. For example, the Kurdish militia forces, which are located in the northeastern part of the country, those are US-backed allies. Turkey hates them. They've got a long-standing problem with the Kurdish militia forces, the PKK, SDF, YPG, militia forces who've pulled off many attacks inside of Turkish territory. The Turks then respond by bombings on their territory. And this is a long-standing conflict between the two. America likes them. Why? Because when they took on ISIS, the battering ram on the ground were the Kurdish militia forces. And there was something to the tune of 11,000 Kurdish militia force members which were killed in those attacks as America carpet bombed from the sky and they took on ISIS on the ground. Turkey and America's interests don't always align with one another. So just that they're NATO allies, even with their relations with Russia, it's not always one and the same. And sometimes it changes from one administration to the other. I don't believe that the U.S. is funding them. I don't believe that. I think that even Turkey was kind of lukewarm to this idea. And the fact that the Turkish-backed groups initially, the attack started in the morning, something around 7 or 8 o'clock. Different convoys of fighters filling into those territories to fight didn't take place until the night. So I think that when it initially started, if they were all in on it from the start, those forces wouldn't have been leaving their territories heading towards the battlefronts at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. They would have been in place at 8 a.m. when the attack initially happened. Now,
Yeah. I mean, so I totally hear what you're saying, and I try to avoid conspiracies because it's just, I mean, they're fun to entertain, but it just doesn't really get anywhere. And so I've learned that in these wars, like, there's a lot of gray area that people, we tend to forget, right? And so does it have to be that America has a whipping boy on the ground and they're coordinating? I don't think it has to be necessarily that way. Like, we've seen the American government do very tricky things where they'll drop off weapons and they're magically available, right? Like, the people, like, they'll allow the forms and they want, it's unconditional because they want to turn up knobs and just turn down or turn up a situation. But I think, do I think this is something coordinated by a Western government? Absolutely not, at least not in my mind. I think it's just for the reasons you gave, plus the way that they attacked. I don't have a map in front of me here, but they didn't attack all in one area. Like, it was across the entire, I guess what you would call the borderland of the Syrian regime, and they had multiple fronts to kind of converge onto the Syrian army, right? So, and it happened at different times throughout the day. So that leads me to believe to the same conclusion that you have, that if they were truly coordinated, they wouldn't have waited, and they wouldn't have different time periods throughout the day when they were launching different fronts.
2 years ago, Jolani had this early 2023. This is before Palestine started. I want your thoughts on this video clip.
الجاهزية العسكرية إخواني وصلت إلى أعلى مدى، فنحن اليوم في العصر الذهبي في الثورة. أقول هذا ليس لرفع المعنويات، وإنما أقولها كمعلومة الآن لتصل إلى الجميع وتطمئنوا أن الثورة السورية بفضل الله عز وجل هي في أفضل أحوالها منذ 2012 إلى هذه اللحظة. لم تصل الثورة السورية بجميع مقوماتها وبجميع ركائزها إلى ما وصلت إليه في هذا اليوم، ولم يبقى إلا القليل بإذن الله تعالى حتى نصل إلى حلب. وأنا أراكم تجلسون في حلب كما أراكم أمامي الآن بإذن الله تعالى.
So he's saying about early 2023, he's saying that we're going to be taking back Aleppo.
I mean, he's saying that they're in the best position that they could have been since 2012, and that he's basically envisioning that soon you're going to be sitting in Halab.
What are your thoughts on that?
well, first of all, I mean, statements like that are not really strange. What else a leader's going to say when you're talking to a bunch of people who are refugees?
Yeah.
Of course, he's got to say something like, y'all going home.
Like hyperbole.
We gonna hook it up.
Yeah.
So, so that's not all that strange from my perspective. Number one. Number two, of course, you've got all of these people who are saying, let us do something because we're living in tents, makeshift camps and stuff, and they overthrow leaders who don't respond to the needs of the people, and he understands that very well. So for him to make those kinds of comments and everything, it's not strange, because right next to rebel-controlled territory, i.e. Idlib, and the countryside of Aleppo is the city of Aleppo. So by default, he wouldn't be talking about, guys, we're going to take Homs. Okay, Homs is way over there. You can't get to Homs unless you take care of Aleppo. And he says, no, we're going to do Hama first. Dude, you're not going to Hama until you finish Aleppo, because we don't have the map here, but if you are cornered in the northwestern part of the country, you can't go anywhere unless you finish Aleppo.
You're landlocked pretty much if you're stuck in that upper northwest. And I think all the crossroads come through Halab anyways, right? To get through different provinces, like it's the major trade route, the trade line to come through Halab, right? You'd have to come through there.
Well, that's kind of like people saying, somebody lives on a dead-end street, and that street that they walk down to get to the intersection, all the trade routes go through that. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
They are they're on a dead-end street. So his statement there, it's not strange.
Right. So how many? So I guess what I would say is, how much control does Jolani have over the groups of fighters that are now, have taken over Halab? And I believe I heard that, I think it was from your tweet, that there's fighting happening in the outskirts of Damascus right now. So how much control do they report to Jolani, or Jolani just kind of riding the wave that hey, we're all going towards Damascus, or how does that work with them? Like, are they just doing their own thing?
Okay, well, firstly, in terms of the fighting in Damascus, those were between two government factions.
Okay.
And that wasn't the rebel forces. Rebel forces have not reached that far down into the country. The second thing is, in terms of his control over them, we can't say between people like Abu Muhammad Jolani, Fahim Isa, Abu Amsha, Sayyid Abu Bakr, names that these names probably don't mean much to you guys, but everybody here knows them. None of them actually have dominant control because they all have thousands of fighters which are fighting. But the good news is that they're all in one operations room and they are coordinating, and that's something that we haven't seen before.
Do you anticipate them becoming one block, or because it seems like that has to happen in order
but
for...
before you get there, actually, I have a little bit more of a gloomy outlook. I mean, let's just say they liberate territory and you have people like Jolani who seek power. Could this be a potential another infighting situation where they lose territory again because
that's what
they
I'm
begin?
saying.
Oh, is that where you're going?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering about that. Will they turn on each other? Like eventually, after there's no Syrian army to fight, and certain individuals like Jolani want power, would that cause them to then fight each other?
It's possible, but I want to look at Afghanistan. When the Taliban were, who did fight in the war against the Soviets, after the Soviet dismantling, you could say most of the Taliban leadership were in Pakistan studying. As Afghanistan descended into chaos, they were asked to come back to help the Afghan people. So Mullah Muhammad Omar and Abdul Salam Daif and the others, they got together and they came back and they were able to unify most of the country. That's huge because Afghans were notorious for fighting amongst each other. But under the leadership of Mullah Muhammad Omar and those that were with him, they were able to bring them under a mutually accepted umbrella. So
but couldn't one argue the case that they were a bit brutal too, like they had to use force to do that?
Not with everybody though. Some they did, but not with everybody. You see, and with this, in this particular circumstance, it is perhaps that the taking of this territory is something that Allah will put in their hearts that they need to come together and start to work together. And this piecemeal deal that they've been doing this time, it's old, it's played out, and a new chapter needs to be written. It's possible, and I hope and I pray for that. But if it doesn't happen, then the big power brokers on the ground are the people. And we just have to galvanize the people and tell them jokers, look, either y'all going to get together and you're going to work together, or y'all getting kicked out.
Yes.
And
so
I think.
I'm sorry, dear, but I think of a possible other scenario here where if someone like a Jolani wants to fight for power, that, like you said, people are the power broker. They may force a change of command, right, and say, listen, we're not fighting for this, right, and then we need to have better leadership. And they may depose him.
The strongest force on the ground are the people.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you that if these guys start fighting amongst each other and this drama, I'll be the first one to try to galvanize the people against them. I'll be the first one. Because at some point you got to say, we ain't having it no more.
Yeah.
It's time to move on. Look, everybody, you got paid. The people want to get paid now. They want to have a real country. They don't want to live in little fiefdoms and little kingdoms under this warlord and that warlord, and they all getting arrested and tortured anyway. Well, we ain't up for it no more. Now, if you want to give us some justice, then you go ahead and be the kingpin. If not, then we the people, we're going to make trouble. And I think that that's the right way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's common sense, right? That people need to have stability, ability to build a life, security, jobs, schools, just basic things that people would want. But
Having seen what you've seen thus far of the Syrian revolution, there's many people, some of these UAE-backed scholars who say, well, look, this is what a revolution and rebellion cause. Do you think the Syrian people will say, despite all the bloodshed and everything that happened, all the displacement and refugees and all the chaos that this revolution created, that it is something that still had to happen? What are their thoughts on the ground?
Well,
is there any regret?
I want to put this in the best succinct terms. Anybody from the security services can come on your door and just come and get you.
Mm-hmm.
And you gone. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the way it is here. Under the Assad regime, torture, everybody saw the images. You're starving prisoners, man. There were like 10,000 pictures of prisoners that were emaciated. They were starved to death. Who the heck starves a prisoner to death except somebody that is the worst of the absolute worst? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you dig?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that for people to have to live under that, they got to say, no, can't be. This can't be all that there is. We got to try something. When you're living under those circumstances, understand something. At the beginning of the revolution, the people were not calling for the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah.
They were calling very clearly for rights. They were not, there was nobody that was in the street.
I remember that.
Beginning, 2011.
I remember that. And
Yeah.
I remember I remember a specific interview because people would always argue this. They would say, oh, these were terrorists and they're foreign fighters. And I said, no, man, I remember watching in Arabic TV news that they were saying, we never imagined that Bashar would attack us because we thought he was one of us, that he went to school, he was educated, he had some ideas of plurality, and that he would listen to our opinions and work with us. They had no idea that he would turn the forces on them and end up attacking them. And I remember that was for the first couple of years of I think it took a few years for even the protesters to gain a force, to pick up arms. Like a lot of them were just defending their neighborhoods. But correct me if I'm wrong, but that's how I remember it. Well,
the protests actually only lasted for several months.
Yeah.
And then when Assad sicked the security dogs on them, that's when it began to turn into an armed conflict.
Yeah.
So for those people in the UAE who are living in a country of vast oil and gas resources and all, where it's a totally different setup to say, oh, you caused all of this chaos. That's like white people saying to black people back during the time of slavery and the times of oppression after slavery, y'all caused this. Y'all brought this drama on yourselves.
Yeah, like the way I look at it is like it would be like the white person saying that, well, Africans were fighting each other in Africa, so that's why we took slaves, because you guys were just doing that to yourself. So we just
we wanted to help you guys out.
Yeah. We just made it easy for you guys, right? We just brought you on over to America, right? But So I think in my mind right now, though, as you're talking, I have this like resounding question in my head right now. Where is Bashar? Like, where is this guy? Is he in Moscow right now?
Yeah, I heard he was in Moscow.
So maybe you can. I know we're kind of jumping to a different topic, but it's just been pounding in my head. Like, where is Bashar in all this?
Okay, Bashar al-Assad officially, about 4 days ago, he went to Moscow. Officially, it was reported by the Moscow Times that he was officially in Moscow. Mm-hmm. Now, yesterday it was reported that he came back to Syria. Ain't nobody seen that cat yet. So you can believe it if you want. And it was reported. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's nothing official. If you ask me, he's in Moscow. He said, man, I ain't going back over there with them people. If the army can stabilize things, then I'll go back. That's part of the reason why you're seeing a collapse of the Syrian regime, Syrian Arab army, because they know that Bashar al-Assad ain't in the country either. They know that. They also know that this decrepit regime has passed its expiration date. They know that.
Yeah.
And they're asking themselves, man, I ain't giving my life for this. So the first opportunity I have to run off, I'll go, pop, pop, pop. Okay, that's it. I'm out. I tried. I gave them my best shot. And that's the reality of the situation, because you got to ask yourself a question. How in the world did rebel forces, remember we talked about the fact that there was an attack coming wasn't a secret, but the success of the attack was something nobody expected. And the reasoning behind that is because this couldn't have happened except that there was a collapse of the Syrian Arab army. They don't want to fight. Them kids are like, look, I'm done. This is over. The regime's finished. And even the main kingpin is not even in the country. So you leave me here to get mopped out by some guys that if I was on their side, I'd be fighting the regime too. And now I got to stand here and get killed. Now I ain't with it.
Right. So questions on that too. I think, I mean, I could be wrong here, but I think maybe possibly some of them have realized that keeping Bashar in power, especially with the individuals and countries that have propped him up, has been very costly for Syrians and Syria itself. I mean, for example, Syria is, to my knowledge, is part of this, this axis of resistance, which is, Russia and Iran and Lebanon, Hezbollah, and they're I'm assuming that they are forced to also transport goods through Syrian territory to Lebanon and Hezbollah, and Israel has made they have made it very clear that they will attack Syrian targets, and they've been attacking them for years. It's not like something new, and it's the Syrian army that I mean, there are positions that usually get hit, right? And other transport lines. So maybe they're realizing that this is not really the best ally to have as a leader, right? Meaning that if it's costing us, we're not really fighting these rebels anymore. We're really fighting for other nations to transport, or for the benefit of other nations like Iran and Russia and Lebanon in this case, right? So maybe they're also thinking that it's time to reanalyze our our allyship with, is it really worth it for us? Has Syria benefited? Oh, I think we lost you.
We lost your audio. I think you must have hit something.
He said 1 second. I love that mural on the back that he has.
Yeah.
You see that?
One of our listeners is saying we also have to ask him about his case against the U.S. government.
Oh, yeah.
Where they tried
am
to
I back
assassinate
on?
him.
Yep, you're back. You're back.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. What was your question again?
The question is, could they possibly be waking up to the fact that being loyal to Bashar has caused more damage to Syria itself because of its relationship with other allies and Israel attacking Syrian fronts and Syrian government positions for their help of Lebanon. So maybe they're realizing that it's just it's not good for anybody to be.
The Syrian people are no more loyal to Bashar al-Assad than the people in the neighborhood are loyal to the local bully. They know. Brother man, let me explain to you the abject poverty that the average Syrian lives under. He's making less than $100 a month. He cannot meet his bills. The police force are thieves because their salaries aren't enough for them to survive on. I'm saying to you that winters in Syria are cold, okay? Maybe nighttime temperatures in Syria in many places will be below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Many homes have no heating source because they have no money to pay for fuel. Not one or two homes, not just below the poverty line. I'm talking about most of the people. They don't have the money to be able to pay for fuel. In regime-held territories and all, you know how you might want to call your man and say, yo, bring your wife and everything. We're going to have dinner. People in Syrian and Arab army controlled territories, they can't do that. Why? Because for the most part, you have to choose between having a good breakfast or a good dinner, or you got to have half and half. You can't have both. So these people are not loyal to him, but also at the same time, they understand and fear the power of his security services. So that's where the people are. And so it's not a thing whether they're saying, well, I think, it's time to hop off this bandwagon. They haven't been on the bandwagon.
And this is also the Syrian regime, right? The army, right? Like also the army members. They're just getting paid or whatever, but they also feel this way too, you're saying.
Well, I mean, when you have army officers who are getting paid, who are living lovely and all, they'll be on board with you.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, 'cause I think, but maybe at some point, like, because Israel has been targeting regime point, and now they've made it clear they're targeting higher officials, right? Like they want to target, important officials, and that means people that are close to Bashar too, because they help, move things around, like to Lebanon and other areas, and they're close with Russia. So maybe they're fearing for, their own safety at this point. It's not a good bargain for them anymore. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I can't answer that. I haven't been privy to those circles.
Yeah.
I could imagine that it would be the way that you're saying, but I don't have any factual evidence to base that on. I know one thing. I'd be scared too if I were them, especially, Bashar al-Assad is not going to last.
Yeah.
It's just not going to last. So, it could be the way that you say it.
There's a lot of commentators, not a lot, but a few who are sympathetic to the Syrians. They're on the side of the Syrians. They don't like Bashar, but they're like, you know what? This is at the wrong moment. This is going to hurt Palestine. The routes that are used by the resistance in Palestine, in Gaza, are coming through Syria and through Hezbollah, and this is not the right moment for the Syrians to do this. This is going to cause further problems for the people of Gaza. What are your thoughts on that?
After the freeing of the slaves during the tenure of Abraham Lincoln, since that time, Black people were fighting for their rights. And they wanted to become equal citizens in America. And for a very long time, that wasn't the case. But what was told to them? Not now. Now's not the time. No, we've got this civil war going on. No, now's not the time. Yeah, okay, y'all won the civil war. You don't have equal rights and everything, but don't push too hard, too fast. Now's not the time. And you know very well that that's exactly what happened. Now, when you're talking to people like Black people, like Palestinians, like Syrians, I can't wait. What am I going to do? I'm going to wait for somebody else to get their rights, and then somehow magically, mystically, majestically, I'm going to get my rights as a result of them getting their rights? No, if they get their rights, they got their rights through armed struggle because they fought. The South Africans got their rights and threw off the yoke of oppression and apartheid because they had an armed military wing to say, we ain't having it no more. And if they didn't have that, and all you're going to do is just sit down and sing songs and hope that some way international pressure is going to pressurize the South African government to give them their rights, then it's a dream. It's not real.
And as you just said,
it's fantasy.
As you said just earlier, these people, the Syrians, are living on scraps. They don't have enough money to even heat their home. They're living in the cold, in the elements, and they're fighting to survive. And how do you tell them that, no, you hang on until we sort out Gaza?
You don't.
You can't.
I mean, they're not going to listen anyways, right? They're not going to listen. If you're starving and hungry, you're not going to say, well, I'm just going to chill.
Yeah.
Until you figure it out, right? Like, it's not going to work, right?
But I'll tell you one thing. even the Palestinians who were under the bombardment, they would never tell them that.
Yeah.
Because
Well, actually,
why?
in
Because
fact, there were
they are
signs.
inspired by them.
Yeah, actually, there were signs coming out of Gaza congratulating the people of Halab for finally breaking through, right? And I'm not sure, they don't know all the details of what's going on and who what, but just to see them break through free of that gave them inspiration that, hey, there's a resistance there. There are people that can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, it took them, 10 years, 12 years sometimes in some cases, right, to do that. And so, Allahu Alam how it's going to be. But, I mean, I think my question for you at this point is, so what happens if Bashar falls now, right? So let's say Bashar is sitting in Russia and, the resistance fighters or rebels continue to get more territory and land and they end up in Damascus, right? What happens now for Syria as itself? Like, I mean, could they come together with a functioning government? Like, would the world recognize
Will
them?
they make peace with Hezbollah?
Yeah,
it seems like even if everything gets sorted out with the rebels and they remove Bashar, it seems like the roadblock, the $1 million question is, how are you going to make peace with Hezbollah, who has brutally slaughtered you as well?
Well, that's what I'm getting to. Like, because even if they could
why should that be a condition towards their progress and prosperity, making peace with Hezbollah,
stability,
which is a group that's not native to Syria? They're Lebanese.
So the reason why I'm going there is because Hezbollah was the first foreign entity to enter into Syria. I mean, and try to help Bashar kill these civilians, right? And if Iran is still running their proxy over there, I mean, I can't imagine rebels taking power of Damascus and Hezbollah not making peace with Israel and turning their fight on the Syrians. I can't imagine that not happening.
I think the first thing that would have to be made clear is this. We don't even hear a lot about Hezbollah here inside of Syria right now. I couldn't tell you what their presence inside of Syria is at the moment. Really couldn't tell you. Mm-hmm. I would say that a part of the reason for the collapse is because Russia pulled out from several of its bases at the start of the drama here. And Hezbollah, who didn't announce anything, but didn't announce anything, but they too have been extremely quiet. Now they've got their own problems back in Lebanon, as you all know. If rebel forces, the best thing that I would say for them to do is to say to Hezbollah, you don't like me, I don't like you, but you know what? We can slaughter each other, or you can just go back where you came from. You got enough problems over there, go sort your own issues out. You go your way, I'll go my way. Rather than for there to be endless, open-ended conflicts, one. Two, the rebels are not, it's going to be extremely unlikely that the rebels will reach Damascus and the rest of the areas of the country. Why? They don't have the manpower for that. But they don't need it. Why? Because in Homs, just last night, local residents launched attacks on the on government forces. Those were not the rebel forces that swept through large areas of the country from the Idlib and the countryside of Aleppo areas. Those were residents that were like, yo, look, these guys are doing it. We need to get in on this too. We've had enough of this regime.
Yeah.
So it's not necessary that the rebels reach all areas of the country. Now, there are difficult days ahead. What's going to be said internationally is going to be, well, who are we really working with over there? Who's really in charge? They'll say Mohammed Jolani, who probably only commands about a few thousand fighters. They'll say, no, he's the one in charge, so that they can put sanctions on the country and everything like that. And I would say, don't worry about it. Don't listen to them. They said the same thing to Afghanistan. And who's running the show over there now? So I think that's what the Syrians have to do.
Yeah, but I totally get it. I wasn't expecting that the rebels all the way from Halab would be the ones to control Damascus, but given based on what you were describing the situation, it seems that people have no loyalty to the regime at the moment, even people in Damascus. And I see a scenario where, like you say, in local residents begin to push back and take control themselves. And if the scenario that we're hopeful for is that, as you mentioned, with the Taliban, when charismatic leaders come and are able to unite people and put away differences, you could have a potential province of Damascus or the area being ruled by local residents who are not at odds with rebels that were in Halep, right? And or same thing in Homs, right? Or they could have their own imara, like their own little government there, right? But I think even if we get to that point, I just feel like, well, what from there? Like, what does Syria look like after that? Is it going to be a functioning a government? Like, is it just another dictator comes in? Like, how does that look like for Syria?
Nobody can predict it, because right now it doesn't have a functioning government.
Yeah. Right
now it doesn't have a functioning government. It has elements of a government, but the government, their services don't even reach most of the population. They have nothing.
Yeah.
The people living in abject poverty, and the government is powerless to do anything about it. They can't protect the skies from the people of their country from the Israeli attacks. So it doesn't have a functioning government right now. So you wouldn't really be destabilizing anything. It would just be making something official that people already knew anyway. You're on your own. Now, a country has to have leadership. And when the Prophet ﷺ would send out 3 people, he would tell them to choose one to be the leader. So leadership is very important, and I understand that. But it's not realistic that the entire country all at one go is going to have complete and total leadership. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a big engagement from the people to say, hey, we trusted rebels in the beginning of this thing to deal justly with the people. That didn't really happen. We're going to be more engaged now. We're going to watch, because justice is not self-implementing.
Yeah.
It takes people to stay engaged and to say, hey, we like you, you are a guy and everything. You know what? But you know what? This thing that you're doing over here, we ain't doing that no more. That's the old thing. So if you're with the new stuff, then we like you. You can continue. But if you're not, then there's going to be a problem. So you choose what you want to do. And that's what the Syrian people have to do. That's what I myself personally try to talk to the people and tell them, you have to stay engaged. You can't not watch what people are doing, because some new joker will come along. He might have a beard. He might have an afro. But you have to make clear what his guidelines are. And that's the project that we're working on, which is called the Justice Covenant, Mithaq al-Adala, where it highlights 4 things. 1, no torture. 2, no indefinite detention. 3, all suspects are to be deemed innocent until proven guilty. And 4, every detainee has the right to see a judge within 48 hours of his detention. We want every single rebel faction, every single person to sign on to the Justice Covenant. Now, once we have that, now we have a real document that we can say, this is what we're demanding that you implement. If you do so, then it's all good. But when we have different ideas in terms of what justice looks like, and this one is saying, well, you know what, we're not for torture, just a little bit, and it depends on who it is, and stuff like that, that's when we're getting into murky waters. Been there, done that, let's move on.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking a lot politically about the situation, but I kind of want to bring in a different element. Like, we know Bilad al-Sham, specifically Syria, plays a big part in the hold on, let me just move this. It's causing the camera to go out of focus. All right. So Bilad al-Sham, specifically Syria, plays a big part in Akhir Zaman, like in the end of times, right? And so I look at this and I'm like, could it be possible that there is a righteous group from among these people that, even for territory within Syria, establish something that you're talking about, where they have these fundamentals laid out and they hold people accountable? And I'm hopeful. I see that maybe they've learned a lesson from 2013 and onwards, that, you know, just because somebody has a beard and somebody says La ilaha illallah and someone's saying jihad fi sabilillah, that he's, you know, automatically to be trusted. I think people like you have mentioned, and mashallah, people like yourself on the ground are helping people also acknowledge that it requires action and accountability. Like, one of the biggest things about a Muslim ruler is that he's accountable. And anyone could hold him accountable. So I'm hopeful that, at least, and this is from an Islamic paradigm, that Allah is preparing the ground for a group from among these people who enjoin the good and forbid the evil, and let them arise and inherit this land, right? Meaning that, and it starts with one small neighborhood, one small area, and then people realize how that operates and how that works, and it grows and it grows. And that's my hope for
the state of Bilad al-Sham is the state of the Ummah, as the Prophet said, right?
Yeah. So that's my hope for it. I mean, I can't, I don't know if that'll happen, but. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I am more hopeful than Syrians, because I think that we have a chance. Allah didn't abandon us. Of all of the Arab Springs that took place, only Syria's revolution is still going. All the others have been quashed. And that's the reality of the situation. And I think that's the barakah of being in Bilad al-Sham. But now, after having said that, we got to get to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to fall out of the sky, and nobody's going to give it to us. There's no cavalry coming over the hill. But if we can let some of the pettiness go away, not even a lot of it, people are going to squabble, I get that. But if we can let some of the pettiness go away, and we can work together, and we can have a level of justice, brother, we can win this.
Yeah.
Inshallah, we can win this. I'm telling you, I wake up every single day mutahammis. I'm excited. I'm fired up, because it's a new day. It's a new opportunity. And I want to make sure that there's no fertile ground for another would-be warlord to take over and continue his oppression of the Syrian people in these new territories.
Are you still? A couple of years ago, you came on our show and you said, "I'm 100% in. I'm not leaving." Do you still feel that way?
Absolutely. Well, why would I leave? We're just warming up.
And how's your case going with against the United States government for your attempted murder by their drones?
Well, it wasn't successful. And why wasn't it successful? It wasn't successful because of a lack of evidence. It was not successful because they cried state secrets, therefore case dismissed. And it happened the first time and on the appeal. Nobody wanted to meet me and say, okay, well, look, if you think that I'm some type of terrorist or something like that, just show me, put some evidence on the table. Nobody was interested in doing that in court. And the judge succumbed to the pressure in Washington, state secrets, and that's pretty much where the case went. But as for me, I have gotten messages that, look, if you want to return home, meaning me, then there's no case against you. Of course, it wasn't official, but it doesn't make any difference to me. The only thing that I really miss from America, I miss some people and stuff like that. I miss real Italian pizza, and I'm talking about America.
I was going to say, like, New York pizza, right? You probably miss some of that New York slices.
Yes, brother. See, you understand. You understand. You see?
What part of New York were you in when you were in New York?
I grew up in Mount Vernon, which is right next to the Bronx.
Oh, okay. So I grew up. I mean, I didn't grow up there, but I spent a lot of my time in Queens. And there's a spot called Gabby's Pizzeria, and it's on Francis Lewis and Hillside. It is the best New York.
Come on.
I'm telling you, bro. If I could send it to you, I'd send it to you.
We ain't got no pizza here like that.
But
Brother Bilal, how do people support you? Our listeners in the chat want to support you and help you continue to do the work that you're doing over there.
We have a website that we're actually just starting, which is called qng.news. That's Q like Queen, N like Nancy, G like government .news. We're just starting it up. And there's a donation page on a button on the home page. And we're actually going to be relaunching it probably on Thursday of this week. So if people would like to support us, we would be so happy for that. Even if it's $5, I'm going to tell you. Because inshallah ta'ala, unless Allah says no, or he's willed it that there's going to be some other people who are going to bring some justice to these territories, we're going for it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going all out. It's all in. Nobody here, myself, Tawqir Talks Sharif, and other brothers, nobody's talking about leaving.
That's awesome.
Well, it seems like the worst is over. I mean, for the most part, it's time. I mean, it can't get much worse from there, right? I mean, it can only go up. Is how I look at it. I mean, I don't know. I'm not on the ground, but
I hope so.
I hope so too. I mean,
the craziness that we're seeing in this century, Brother Bilal, whether it's from the Israelis or the Bashar's dogs, you're seeing a level of oppression that is inconceivable,
unfathomable. Yeah.
Like I saw it the other day, the Israelis were replacing bags of flour with sand,
yeah,
and sending it to the Palestinians in Gaza,
and they think it's funny.
Yeah.
But so before, I know we're coming close on time, but there's two questions I want to ask you before you wrap up. So number one, you can answer them in your own pace, but what is the activity and the involvement, or I guess of the Shabiha now? Are they still as active, and are they still terrorizing people as they were early on? Are they still as strong? And number two, what is the role of the scholars right now in Syria? Are they aligned with any of these groups? Are they advising any of them? Are they what is their role in any of this at the moment?
In terms of the Shabiha and the of those who operate under the Syrian Arab Army and controlled areas of Bashar al-Assad, they're still there, but they're only as active as they are or are not pressured by other forces, like rebel forces. They're not friendly to those people, and therefore they're not as active. They're not able to do as much. When the people are calling for justice, they're not able to be as active. But in the absence of those two elements, brother, they're like Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So that's the reality. The second part of your question, I forgot what
about the scholars, their involvement in working with these groups, or the current I mean, just what role are scholars playing right now?
Okay, look, I'm going to say something. Some people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it, but I'm going to be real with you. I have always tried to entice the ulama around the world to become more interested in what's happening here in Syria, and to come here and to be a part of what's happening here in Syria. But we're just not able to do that. Oh, I can't get in. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that, and all. And I think that the Ummah's been giving them too much of a free pass. I think the Ummah has to say, listen, Sheikh so and so, Jazakallah khair, but we got 15 scholars here in Saudi Arabia. We don't need all of them here. Maybe one or two can go over to Syria and they can help the brothers over there. Or maybe one or two of them can go over to the Palestinian territories and they could help the brothers over there. We don't all have to bunch up here. But there's a good life in Saudi Arabia. There's a good life in the United Arab Emirates. There's a good life in Doha. There's a good life in Kuwait and everything. Now, you got some good brothers over there, some good scholars, man. But I really wish that the people would say to them, hey, man, why don't you go over there and help those brothers out? They need you. All right, we got this thing here. We don't need for everybody to bunch up in Kuwait. Why don't one or two of y'all go over there? Why they wouldn't go, oh, we'll be labeled as terrorists with this and that, and therefore the ummah misses out. And that's the reality of the situation. And I wish and I pray to Allah that the scholars would pay some zakat on that knowledge and bring themselves over here and help us out firsthand.
Yeah, because I always think like that's one of the complexities, right? Say, oh, these people are just rebels. They're just, Kharijis, or they're like this, right? And so they always complain that there's no direction or there's no Islamic sanctioning of what they're doing, right? Yeah. And I know there's a complexity in bringing scholars too, right? Some scholars have, often either to the right or to the left, or some are government scholars, and it's always difficult. But I feel like if there were genuine scholars who simply were just there to advise, right? Meaning to say, hey, this is haram, this is halal, and not, and whether you do, you don't do, I can't enforce that, but at least you know the hukm from Islam, you know the ruling, that was clear, right? That, hey, you're falling in line, and people can then know, hey, is this particular leader, i.e. Jolani, is he following in line with Islam or any other leader, right? If not, okay, well, now the people have a measuring stick and saying, you know what, hey man, you're not doing it right. We need to correct that, right? And and that's why I asked the question, right?
Well, and a lot of people, sincere whether they're not scholars or what have you, they want to come to Syria as well, and they don't know how to do it. They don't know which group they're going to fall into. They want stability. They want to see stability, right? And they want to see reconstruction, and they want to be part of that reconstruction and that effort. But they got to see stability, and they got to see a leadership that is genuinely concerned of the people. When we hear about Jolani is still torturing and things like that raises alarms, to be frank. That people don't want to invest in someone who is still committing un-Islamic practices. It's as simple as that.
There are some of the classical scholars who are made big impacts on this ummah, but some of them, their fatwa regarding Hajj, what they would say was not the best fatwa, and it would be best to take the fatwa from other scholars. Why would a bona fide scholar's fatwa concerning Hajj not be looked at in the best of light? Because some of the ulama didn't have access to make Hajj. They couldn't go for whatever reasons. Do you see?
Yeah.
So just like being here, it's easy to sit in the United Arab Emirates and give fatwa about Syria.
Yeah.
You've never been here. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what's up. You don't know what the people are living under. So we say, come. We will facilitate you coming. We will host you. We will protect you. But you come and you bring that knowledge, and we'll be willing to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, inshallah they do. They take it. Just one more final question.
Go for it.
Has there been any recent attempts by the U.S. government on your life over there in Syria?
No, I think that my bringing that case against them and the public scrutiny that was a result of that withdrew whatever they thought that I was into. And as I said, I did have some communication from people in Washington who said, there's nothing on you if you want to return home. I said, I'm not interested in returning home. So, that wasn't an official thing. It was not. It basically came from someone who had said, hey, I checked on it for you and everything. Not that I even asked for it, but if you want to come home, you can. But I'm not interested. I'm where I want to be. I'm not shipwrecked. I'm where I want to be. So, yeah. Yeah,
and you've made several public disavowals. You've been imprisoned by HTS. There's no connection between you and any State Department or designated terrorist organization. So I don't understand any reason.
If you look on all terrorist lists, you do not find the name Bilal Abdul Kareem on one of them.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Listen, Brother Bilal, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on again. Let's keep in touch, and I hope as more victories come our way, we can have you on, and you can give us or elaborate with your thoughts related to any events that transpire.
Yeah, just one
Allah
quick question. So the new news network. What is the abbreviation for? Is it Q? What?
Qibla News Global.
Okay, all right, got
So
it.
OGN is no more?
It focuses more on global news, Palestine, what's happening in Bangladesh and stuff like that. That's the direction that we're going in.
Okay, excellent, inshallah. So on the ground news is no more?
No, it is.
Oh, it's still going on.
But that's for Syria
it is.
specifically, right?
Right.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Listeners, please help us out on patreon.com/the Every little bit helps. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Throw a comment section down below with your thoughts. People in the chat, we need your comments in the chat, in the comment section below. The chat doesn't help the algorithm at all. But we had a great number of people that showed up today. We're really happy to have hosted Brother Bilal. Thank you so much. We'll see y'all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair.
I want their leader brought here.
All right, that's
I want
a
him brought
wrap.
to me. I want the
Jazakallah khair,
revolution.
Brother Bilal.